Wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone. My name is Violet Alday. I'm chair this year for PHNS RTM committee. Very excited to be with you tonight. We have a lot of good things to discuss. We've got some great folks joining us as well to cover a particular big issue. Before we get started, I'd just like to make a motion to start the meeting. Would anyone like to?
You don't need a motion. You can just call it to order.
And just call it to order. Fabulous.
Yep. You're the chair.
Order, and then at the end, I guess I'll get to close the meeting. So just very quickly, just one quick thing I wanted to get out of the way is just a review and approval of the minutes. Any questions from the minutes from our last meeting was in October. And we actually did discuss a bit of the sump pump back then, but did everyone have a chance to look? Any questions or comments about the minutes from October for our committee?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Jim. Do I have a second? Second. Liz, thank you very much. Okay. With that,
you need to take a vote, though.
Oh, thank you. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay. Anyone not in favor, say no. Okay. No? Great. Okay. Approved. Thank you very much for that. Okay. So we have everyone on the phone. I wanted to get to our big topic for tonight, and I'm sure you may have been able to take a look at the some meetings that happened last week in other committees, but what we have today are some members of our Public Works and Sewer Commission who are here to talk to us about the latest movement on the sump pump ordinance. And I'm not sure how you'd like to do it. Darren, Ed, would you like to start the conversation and walk us through the latest version? You know, I know there's also a document from Susan Cameron that was also provided. So I'd like to turn over to you to walk us through where you are today and kind of maybe just a summary of some of the recent conversations you've had last week also, so that, we don't go over some of the same questions again. We don't have to.
Oh, sure. And first of all, thank you all for having us tonight. I do want to make just really quick introductions. So the folks that may not know the Sewer Commission, Susan Cameron is on the line with us, Reese Hutchinson, and the Chairman of the Sewer Commission, Craig Flaherty, is on the line also. Our town attorney, Bob Burney, is here, who helped us craft the original and helped us revise the current ordinance and regulations. And Assistant Darren Ostafine, Assistant Director of Public Works. And I am the Director of Public Works, so my name is Ed Gentile. Again, thank you for having us. I'm gonna, if you would give me maybe like 5 minutes just to kind of walk you through the sump pump removal ordinance beginning, if you will, and why and how come, because the same information I gave the TGS and A group, I think it was actually very helpful for them. They did mention that. If you allow me, that's okay. I'll jump right into that. Is that okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, what is I&I or inflow infiltration, where is it generated from? Susan Cameron was nice enough to put together the 2-page informational sheet for you. I believe you all have it. One side is a lot of definitions, kind of layman's terms, if you will. Those are good for me because, they're very helpful in trying to get our point across. And on the other side is impacts of what you see, the differential between our water use and rainfall and how it impacts our system. So, and she may comment on that, folks, to you later. I believe she'd like to. But once we have I&I in our system, you want to know, how do we remove it? And what we've been doing over the last couple of years is growing what we call the low-hanging fruit in about 2/3 of our system, where it was impacted the most by the inflow and infiltration. And that was, we lined our pipes, we lined our manholes. So what we were doing was we are trying to make our system watertight so that we were not getting clean water into the system. What we've gotten to now that we've addressed the low-hanging fruit is we come to some of the harder topics. And those are the direct connections made from either homes or catch basins or something like that. And one in particular that we're going to speak about tonight are sump pumps, for folks that have sump pumps in their homes that are connected to our sanitary sewer system. Not all sump pumps are. And I'm not saying, that everyone that has a sump pump is connected. No, that's not true. Some of them are discharged properly out to your yard, out to a dry well, a connection to the storm drainage system in front of their houses are some of the options. So that we're finding out is to be true. Not everyone is illegally connected, but there are many that are connected that should not be. So how did we begin this? And about 5 years ago, the Sewer Commission took upon itself to start notifying people that these type of connections were hurting our system. Maintenance-wise, they were hurting our financial position as a commission. They recognized that we were paying for clean water to be treated by the city of Stamford, and the city of Stamford was happy to charge us for that. And we thought that that was a good opportunity to start. Now is a good opportunity to start addressing that impact it was having, both maintenance-wise and financially. So 3 years ago, they started working on this. So we've been working on this for over 3 years now, in trying to craft an opportunity and an ordinance and regulations that would help us get to the end goal, which is let's remove those direct connections as best we can, And we looked at different approaches, a passive one where we sent out a letter. We sent it out with your bill every year for 5 years straight. We looked at active approaches where we would do possible inspections, a disincentive, a fine for not getting back to us was another discussion. And the big topic was, do we do it town-wide, or we pick a local area that we may think is better suited for this? And as you see, we've kind of decided to grab the whole town in one shot. It seems once we get past the first mail list, we should be able to get this down to a more manageable number. We worked with town attorney to craft this ordinance, and there were many iterations through many meetings. So the goal was to work on a collaborative with an incentive to act. This is not punitive. This is not a punitive approach. This is need for cooperation. We're looking for information from our residents, and we're targeting removal of private inflow. Rather than to spend money on further funding mitigation efforts, we thought this was an approach where we could actually target, direct issues that we were having. Educating our users was a big topic also after the last couple meetings we've had with the RTM and some of their subcommittees. Letting them know it does cost us money to process clean water. All of our sewer users are now subsidizing a small group with illegal connections. So our final product, we got to the end of it, implementing a compliance statement approach town-wide. Keep it simple. That was our approach. Keep the fines small. Make it incentive, but not punitive. Continue to answer questions as they were needed. We're going to get a lot of questions. We realize that. Not everyone knows what a sump pump is. Not everyone knows if they even have one. Those were things that we realized we're going to have to provide information on, supporting our sewer users, and continue it on a yearly basis till we get down to a manageable number that we believe is now we've benefited our system, but we've taken out as much as we possibly could. And that could take a couple of years to do. And finally, managing expectations. Getting back these compliance statements, some folks may not be able to provide us all the accurate information that they have. We realize that, deliberately or not deliberately, we realize that. We do anticipate a percentage of return, and we're shooting for about 75%. That's about 4,075 users. We have 5,400. We figure about 75% could return a response to us. And then we look at the fine revenue from that. There's about 1,300 people that would pay a $250 fine. That's over $300,000, where that money could be put back into our program in ways of financial assistance. Now, the Sewer Commission is considering that. They haven't finalized the policy yet, and they will do that, and they've committed to doing that, but they're still working on that piece. It could go back into the system on addressing maybe upgrades to storm drainage system to allow neighborhoods, if they have to, tie into our storm drainage system. I talked about there not being an impact to our storm drainage system from this additional water. I still stand by that statement. And then finally, as I said, Sewer Commission and staff is ready to address numerous questions that we're going to be getting. But that's part of the process. We realize that. Which is why we've given so much time to disconnect, an appeal process, allowing folks to come in and talk to the Sewer Commission about it, come in and talk to Darren and myself at staff level to talk about how to resolve things or even get questions answered. So, in the results of the sump pump or removal program, I think it's beneficial to everyone. And I think the reduction in flow in our system helps our maintenance costs. The lower payments to the city of Stamford WPCA, again, helps the rate users. And finally, I think the item that is particular interest to you folks is the reduced chances of SSOs, which are sanitary sewer overflows from our system out of manholes, onto streets, out of plumbing systems in people's homes. That in particular is one of the items that we are taking serious as about 4.5, 5 years ago, we were issued a consent decree, which is basically a lawsuit taken by the Save the Sound folks and the DEP because we had a really major SSO that we had to address. So in that process, for the last 5 years, we've been complying with their requirements to upgrade our system, to inspect our system, and we will continue to do that until we've looked at it all. And right now we're about halfway done. We probably have another 5 years to make sure we look at every piece of pipe and every manhole in our system. Then we can, as we've been doing all along, repair as needed, emergency conditions, plan on current maintenance or upgrading maintenance where needed. And again, reducing the inflow, direct connect inflows is probably the most important piece to us. Now that I've spoken and talked your ears off, and thank you very much for listening, that's all I have. I don't know if any of the commissioners want to add. Violet, if you would allow them to talk or speak or not, that's completely up to you. I turn it back over to you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. I invite the Sewer Commission to also share thoughts and overview and important information for us as well.
Yeah, I think I did a great job. I'd just like to embellish a couple of points. Craig Flaherty, Chairman of the Darien Sewer Commission, thank you for your time. One, I assume this particular committee is a little more knowledgeable than others in that sometimes if you're talking to other people, you might start from a very basic situation, which is in the town of Darien, we have separate sewer systems. So we have one system to capture rainwater flowing off the surface, and that system conveys that water generally to our streams and brooks and rivers, and that's then conveyed to Long Island Sound. Whereas we also have a separate sanitary sewer system. A few people don't understand this nuance. I just want to make sure we say it out loud in public. And you're aware that sometimes maybe when you're talking to people, you have to start really from the ground up. We have a separate sanitary sewer system, which is solely designed to manage effluent from homes and businesses. And the problem is, as Susan's graphs demonstrate, that in wet years, more than half of the water in that system could be clean. And it's notable that that's over the average of the year. Really, when we have heavy rain events or we have seasonal high groundwater in the spring, that proportion could be much greater than half and is much greater than half. So what happens now, we have all of this clean water starting to occupy the system capacity. And it can, in severe instances, overwhelm the system. So the pipes no longer have the room to take both the sewage effluent and that clean water. That's what leads to the surcharges and some of the discharges to surface that Ed has discussed. That's the tie to public health and safety. So what we're trying to do just in general and have been doing for years on the Sewer Commission through our infrastructure improvement projects and our I&I abatement projects is to reduce the amount of that clean water in the system. We're lining pipes, we're lining manholes, we're finding leaks, we're fixing those leaks, we're making manholes more flood proof. And we have been doing that for years. We've been spending millions of dollars doing that. And we're trying to reduce the amount of clean water in the system and thereby leave the capacity of the system to convey the sewage. so that the system doesn't get overwhelmed and we don't get those SSOs, sanitary sewer overflows. We've been working diligently on the public side of the system, but a big component and contribution is likely coming from the private side of the system. Leaky laterals, direct roof leader connections, and largely illicit sump pump connections. There are already ordinances on the books here in town, state code, that say you cannot have these clean water connections to a separate sanitary sewer system like ours. We've been trying to educate for the last 5 years through the sewer bills that go out, residents that this type of connection is not permitted, and requesting and asking for them to investigate and remove if it does exist. But we need to ratchet up the response rate, right? I don't know how many of you receive sewer bills each year, and how many of you may have noticed that notice in your sewer bill each year. But as we are all overwhelmed with communication and junk, my worry is that lots of people throw it out without really giving it a second thought. Thereby, again, this is how we're trying to up the ante to say, no, here's a piece of paper you actually have to fill out and send back to us. And the Sewer Commission acts as the water pollution control authority for the town. And as such, we have certain empowering statutes that allow us kind of full oversight of the use and maintenance of our system. And we adopt our own regulations, and we adopt regulations that allow us to do a lot of things and pursue this effort. But the thing we're asking the RTM to do is to give us some teeth, basically give us the stick along with the carrot, so that we have this incentive to comply by way of the potential fine for not responding to the compliance statement. That's the narrow ask of RTM. Help us as dedicated public servants trying to do the right thing for the town, trying to do the right thing for our sewer users, trying to do the right thing for public health. It's a financial benefit, it's a public health benefit. And we just need a little help to make sure that kind of legally we are as fully protected as possible to move forward with this program. So again, it's pretty much what Ed said. I just wanted to embellish a little bit from my perspective.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Thank you for that. Anyone else? Susan, did you want to go through your document? Is there, anyone else who wants to share, additional angle on what's being asked and kind of the needs for the town?
Yes, thank you. I don't want to repeat too much of what was already said. I am been on the Sewer Commission for about 6 years and didn't have any idea what I&I was when I joined. So that's why I thought perhaps others might like that little AI overview that I just got off of Google. And then I'm a numbers person. So I took the numbers we get every year when we set the sewer service rate from DPW staff and charted it, because sometimes you see things better in a picture form. And then I added in the rainfall just to show in a wet year, the I&I is going to be much greater than in a dry year. We kind of know this, but this really does show it. I also want to stress who's paying for this. I have heard people say, well, the town's paying for it. The town doesn't pay for this. As everyone said so far, it's the sewer users who are paying for it. So while a small portion of sewer users likely have some pumps that are pumping into the sanitary sewer, it's the whole sewer base that's paying for all of this water. And as a commissioner, I'm a fiduciary for the sewer users. And this is illegal, and it's also not fair. Lastly, thank you. I want to thank everyone on the RTM for your interest in this, because Darien is at the forefront. There aren't other towns have people using sump pumps to pump into the sanitary sewer, but we're the first ones who are going to try and do something about it. So writing this ordinance, writing the regulation, it's all new. I'm grateful to our town attorney, who seems to be so on top of it. But I also thank the RTM members for their input into the process. So that's it. I don't know if you have any questions about my chart. I'm happy to answer them.
Any other commentary? And then I think we'll open it up for some questions.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in and just like
Thank you,
fill
Reese.
in the blank a little bit. There's been real concerns about the policing powers and the extent of what the sewer commission can do to enter somebody's home. And this tool that we're asking for your help creating is the lightest touch we could create. It's an information gathering tool. There are remedies for health violations that are severe that we always had. And this is just asking for your help to make the soft approach where we can gather information and try and work with people in the most constructive way to help them solve both their problem and our together. And it's been brought up a few times that, well, great, you guys are 5 people that are exceptional on the commission now, but what if it changes in the future? And I think what we're doing here is not opening any kind of a Pandora's box of increased authority at all. It's already there. We already have it. It's just one more tool that we have in our toolbox to collaborate with people in a way and gather information about our system and how best to start solving problems. So I just want everybody to know that from the 5 people that sit in the staff, this isn't any bit more aggressive than we need to be. We're trying to make the lightest touch possible to work with anybody, and anybody that's ever come in and asked for an appeal or forgiveness for a leak. Really collaborative. We spend an incredible amount of time on those appeals and do our best to try to find an equitable fairness. There's 5 of us on the commission. We all see things slightly differently, but it's been a lovely experience for me to serve with everybody, including the staff. We're really fortunate. We've got a very good commission, and this is just one more step to hopefully make our system safer for the environment, more efficient for the ratepayers, and more efficient going forward for capacity for development and existing conditions. So we thank you guys so much for being our partners in this. Really, marketing outreach is what we need. And there's 100 of you that were all elected, and you know an incredible amount of people in town. You're going to be confronted in the grocery stores just like we are. And anything you can do, even referring them to us, if there's any further questions going forward, we really appreciate your help and thank you.
Thank you, Reese. All right. So, you know, you've put so much work into this, and again, thank you. And I know you've been presenting to several committees already, and you know, there's been a lot of discussion. I did want to open it up to the PH&S committee. Do you have, you know, any questions? Or just open the floor. I mean, I'm pretty clear about, you know, the need to do this, and I think, you know, for all the reasons you've laid out in terms of environmental need and everything else, you know, I think for me, probably the area that I, you know, would like to see maybe just the more clarity are some of the questions that already came up in last week's RTM meetings with TGSNA around the fine and the consistencies between all the different regulations and ordinances, so that everything is clear. And I think there was just a little bit more work to do there. Do you want to talk about that at all, so that you could give everyone just kind of a quick update on maybe what you're already thinking about doing next, and that may help us with some questions that we have.
Violet, is it okay if we let Bob Bernie kind of explain our next steps? I know he's been working with David on that the language and stuff that I guess was suggested.
That would be great. Thank you.
Bob?
Yep, great. Hi, everybody. Bobby Burney here, Town Council's office. If you saw the meetings last week, you probably saw me. And hopefully what I said made sense. So I'm here to help hopefully clarify here on some of what we're trying to do. I am working with David right now. He has provided me with some comments, some revisions he would like to see made to the regulations. One thing I want to clarify here, and Craig touched on this before, so I don't want to reiterate too much, but there are really 2 separate tracks of authorities here. There's the RTM, and there is the Sewer Commission acting in its capacity as WPCA, the Water Pollution Control Authority for the town of Darien. The Sewer Commission derives those powers as WPCA from state statute, not from the RTM. The reason we're coming before the RTM here is because, as the commission members and Ed have already explained, we have limited implied authority as a sewer commission to levy fines for activities relating to rules and regulations regarding the sewer system. The RTM does have authority under state statutes to implement fines for virtually any kind of activity relating to, a municipal governance. Here, what we're trying to do is we're trying to maintain a rather, I don't want to, broad is not the right word, but there will inevitably have to be things that are filled into the sewer commission's regulations as the program moves along. We don't have a lot of precedent to rely on here. Being an attorney, one thing I love is when I can turn and look at something another town has done, another city, or even the state has done, and there's a nice little template I can take and I can hit control copy and paste it right over and say, this is great. We don't have that here. This is a novel, unique program. Because of that, there's going to be, I think, growing pains in some ways as to how we develop it. And right now, it is very much an information gathering program, as opposed to some of the language that already exists inside of the appendices to the ordinance that already provide the ability to fine people, for example, for illicit discharges. This is not intended to be a preemption of pre-existing fine powers. The Sewer Commission can already do that. They can already fine you for having an illicit discharge connection. Instead, this is intended to create really just an information gathering program to suck in as much information as possible about who is using them, what's being discharged where, and what volume, and so on and so forth. And the regulations in the ordinance are tailored around that concept. Some of what TGSNA pointed out last week that I think has merit is that we don't want to create a sense of confusion as to if you have a sump pump and you're a resident, what set of regulations are you listening to? Do you have to follow Article 11, which says if you get a notice saying you have an illicit discharge, you got to disconnect within 30 days? Or are you following the proposed, the current proposed Article 13, which says you get a compliance statement, fill in the information, and then you get a few months to figure it out? So I am working with David right now and a few of the other committee chairs, and I plan to send an email this week with more information about how I think we can update some of that information to address some of those concerns and the overlap here. One point that I'll make here that I made in the meetings last week is to keep in mind that the Sewer Commission, because it derives its power from a state statute here, I want to be cautious here, and I want to balance both the role the RTM plays and the Sewer Commission plays here and not really overstep boundaries too much. The ordinance is intentionally very narrow. It's a one-page document that effectively just says the Sewer Commission has a compliance statement program relating to sump pumps. If you violate that program, you can be subject to a citation of up to $250 per violation. That's really it. The actual meat of the program will be under the Sewer Commission's regulations. Now, in a very cut and dry sense, the RTM does not have the legal authority to tell the Sewer Commission, you must change these regulations, you must do that. But at the end of the day, we are asking for collaboration here for all the reasons that have been explained already. So if you have comments to those regulations, if you have concerns about certain aspects and items to it, for example, how the fines interplay with one another, Jack Davis had some great comments about how he wants to see them revised that I plan to incorporate and share with all of you. But really right now, I'd just like to hear any concerns you have about those specific provisions so I can either address them or I can incorporate them as we move forward.
Thank you, Bobby. So let me just turn it over to the committee. Any questions, anything that hasn't come up that you wanted to impress upon or, mention? I'll give you one that I have, which is simply, and I know you're going to work on it, which is, as you think about the special consideration and hardships, and I think the more we can spell out kind of what that looks like, the better, the earlier, the better, so that you have something set as you start this outreach versus amending it as you go. I just think that would be better.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I have a question. When I was listening to this, it just feels like everybody is tiptoeing around like we're really afraid something's going to blow up. And I'm like, what? Who are you guys trying to make nice with? Are you trying to persuade the RTM to get behind this, or is this more of a public relations effort? To me, it feels like there is a regulation anybody who's doing this is not in compliance. Why are we turning ourselves inside out to accommodate and not offend anybody? I mean, as long as it's fair, people have recourse in terms of an extension or support. I don't really understand why we're going to such great lengths to coddle everybody who is doing something wrong.
Well, I think maybe it's because they don't know that they're doing something wrong, right? I mean, I'm new to this, but I've heard the term illegal quite a lot tonight. And do people even know they're doing something illegal? What about people who just bought a home and they don't even know what the sump pump does or where it's drained or anything? And I had another question about like, is there going to be instructions on how to find out where your sump pump? People have asked me that. Well, where does it drain? How do I find out?
So I can address questions as to, I think that the first question that Ms. Bacon had, Ms. Clements, that might be better directed toward Ed or some of the sewer commission members, because I can explain the law, but I don't necessarily know sump pump 1 from sump pump 2. I know the general confines of what we're trying to do here. When it comes to who we're per se tiptoeing around, from my own perspective, there's the perception I always come in from is I am often, tasked as from town council's office to deal with legal disputes from residents. And I often have to think about how would a resident approach this if they were trying to challenge this or contest this in some way that was in the town's best interest to defend or object to. In that sense, we need to have a program that is legally sound. It has some justification and some basis to it. And that is in many ways why we're in front of the RTM right now. Because for example, if I were in court for some reason having to defend this program or a fine levied under this program, I want to be able to say, Your Honor, this is the statute under state law under which the RTM as the town's legislative body can authorize fines for certain activity. And they duly passed it. This is a fine, pretty straightforward. So if you sense that I'm tiptoeing around anything, really I'm tiptoeing around potential legal challenges, first and foremost. That said, I do think that there is a collaborative element to this as well, and a public knowledge element. And this gets to the point of why aren't we just, if something's illegal, it's illegal, just fine them for it and be done with it. Gosh, I wish it could always work that way, but you can have something on a piece of paper that says this is illegal, but how do you go about enforcing it? In some contexts, that's very simple and straightforward. I think as Ed and Craig and some of the other members of the Sewer Commission have hopefully made clear here, I think they've been trying to do that now for the past couple of years, sending out these statements, trying to get people to provide information. But if you simply don't know where these sump pumps are originating from or who is connecting, it's very hard to go out there and enforce something that even if it is illegal, how do you go about discerning it? So I think this process here, this information gathering process, is really intended to answer that question of figuring out who is doing it. Do they know they're doing it? Do they know it's wrong? What sort of assistance may they need to rectify if they want to act in good faith? And I think only in situations where somebody is discharging willfully or is continuing to do it even after they've been told and warned it's prohibited, I think only then you kick into the existing more prohibited fines that can accrue to much higher tolls to basically be punitive, prevent you from doing it in the future when you know you're doing it or reasonably should know you're doing it.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say through my day job, I have the opportunity to work in a lot of different municipalities in the state. And something that I have grown to appreciate about Darien, both as a citizen and as a public servant, volunteer as you all are, is that the general tenor of town hall is to be customer service oriented. We're all citizens of the town, all of us. The people that sit on the boards and the people that don't. And we're all sewer users, or 80% of us or so are sewer users. We could act alone, but I think we always try to find consensus and recognize that we're serving ourselves. We're not providing some iron fist oversight. And that's, I think, the approach we're taking.
Do you have any way of having any estimate as to how many homes this will actually affect? How many homes based on your numbers, are actually illegally discharging? Just wondering what the scope of the problem is.
Unfortunately, it would be a wild guess, which is why we're trying to collect this information. Do I think I think it's a minority of sewer users, but any number I throw out there would be a guess.
Is there a way now for people to come to town hall and say, I have a sump pump. I don't know where it discharges. Can you come and take a look and tell me what to do?
So what we have in the regulations is that you can ask a qualified person to make such an inspection if you're unclear, right? Maybe it's a builder, an architect, or plumber, your friend who's a builder, anything like that, someone that would generally know. We will accept that answer. And then Ed and Darren and his staff, and even some members of the sewer commission have volunteered to look at pictures and perhaps go out and take a look.
Thank you. That's a good answer. I mean, I think my concern is that this winds up being a situation where people who are trying to do the right thing and talk about their connection might be penalized in a way that people who don't come forward are not. And I don't know what the answer to that is.
Well, I think if you're responding, you're going to be on our good side, and we're going to try to work with you.
Okay, that's good to know.
My question sort of follows that one, which is, if you're asking a qualified professional to come out and inform you about your sump pump discharge, at least my reading of the documents that came before us is you're asking that professional to certify that they inspected it and it's not dumping illegally. Do you have concern that professionals aren't going to want to certify to that when they're putting themselves at risk of penalty?
I mean, to me, it's a pretty clear scenario, right? It's either connected to the system or not. And so if you're a qualified individual, you're going to know that pretty clearly. I'm not worried about that, I guess. It's an interesting point. I wasn't worried about it.
And Craig, just one thing there. There might be some cases where connections are made, between in the lateral, in the road, between the house and the road. There may be some situations where nobody can find out without camera.
Yeah, it's unseen, for example. Yeah.
So our whole approach here is not to get everything perfect, but to cast the widest net we can in the fairest possible way we can to sort of eliminate the lowest hanging fruit, and then we go from there. And there's going to be some situations where no matter how expert somebody is, without putting a camera down the line, we won't know where the connection was made, or if it's made, or at all where the sump pump goes. So that there are going to be some vague, we don't know questions. But there's also going to be some very obvious cases where somebody's plumbed a sump pump right into the sewer line, and you can see it in the basement. And one photo will describe everything. So that's sort of where we're approaching this. We don't need to be perfect right away. We mean to start with a large data set and work our way towards better.
I got a bunch of questions. A couple of them were submitted by a member who can't be here tonight. First of all, I'm a huge fan of the Sewer Commission. You got to watch their meetings. They are so fair when people come before them and appealing bills. Just the kind of cooperation that Craig was talking about. And Susan, thank you for that chart. Inflow and infiltration are big problems. I get that. That chart really showed me how we're putting a lot more down the sewers than is actually, being used in terms of water from Aquarian. But my concerns are, and we haven't really talked about this, is the cost of compliance. I am of a mind that, given the cost of plumbers these days, it will cost me or a user more to be in compliance with this regulation than it's going to save me on my sewer bill. Am I wrong?
Well, your bill won't change because we're not. So someone that has a sump pump connected is not paying for the discharge of that sump pump, and that's the whole point. Because the only thing that we're charging you on is your domestic water use.
But I
So,
think Jim's question is as a sewer user in
Right.
general. If I'm going to pay
I see.
two
Yes,
hundred
if
fifty
we,
dollars,
yeah, if we're able to reduce the overall cost of operating the
exactly.
system and paying Stanford, yes, that's going to be in the percentages, maybe single or double digit percentages. But yeah, it could be costly to come into compliance depending on particulars of the situation.
I
So
think, Jim,
as
you're nibbling at the cost of the
Go ahead,
fine of $250 being less expensive than a plumber. Is that sort of what your premise is in a way?
Well, again, as I mentioned at the RTM meeting, I have a constituent who is an older woman, and she's living in a house where she claims her sump pump is only fired up 3 times in 30 years. And, she's asking me, why am I going to pay $500, $1,000 to fix a problem I'm not really part of? And why am I, bearing that burden? Now, Bob Burney, for the first time, has mentioned something that caught my attention, which was if it's a $250 fine for noncompliance with this letter, this affidavit you're sending out, and you're done with it, that may be a cheaper response for somebody who just goes, "Hey, I'll pay the $250. It's one time only, or is that an annual fee?" And what were these punitive fines that you were talking about for people that, as one of your commission members referred to them, and this I did not like hearing, perpetrators, portraying them, and you probably know who that commission member is, portraying them as some sort of, criminals who were, pulling a fast one on the system here. Well, first of all, I know the ordinance hasn't been written yet, but is the $250 a one-time and you're done fine? And then, as you said, that money can be put to use in other activities. Is it an annual fee? And what are these more punitive fines that then might be kicking in? Bob?
Good question. So I want to back up here because the $250 fine only kicks in if you are, in the first instance, not returning your compliance statement or providing false information in the statement you do return. But it's not a one and done. Even under the current version of the regulations, the superintendent of sewer services, who would be Ed, has the authority to reissue them every 90 days to anybody who is not returning the information when requested, and reissue them annually to all applicable residents. So those fines can continue to toll. Now, I think part of that question is, hey, if it's just $250 a year I got to pay to make these guys go away, why don't I just write a check and make them go away? That is a potential circumstance to deal with. I think because this, as it's currently tailored regulation, is not meant to be prohibitive. It's meant to be information gathering. That is a kind of situation we would have to address moving forward. Now, in the immediate instance, if somebody is misrepresenting or lying in information they return, or they are willfully avoiding returning information because they don't want to admit that they have a sump pump connection, we already have, as I said before, the Article 11 of the Town Code of Ordinances already provides a fining mechanism whereby if there is reason to believe you have an illicit discharge on your property, Ed can send you a notice. Say you have 30 days to disconnect. If you don't disconnect within those 30 days, $100 fine per day for every day you do not disconnect. I have dealt with daily fines in the context of both this Darien and in other towns. They can rack up very quickly. And all of a sudden, you try to ignore it for 6 months, you're going to have, a hefty fine there you're dealing with at that point. So already, even as the current code is drafted, supplemented by these regulations, if somebody is just trying to write this off as the lesser of two financial burdens to deal with, that's going to backfire pretty quickly.
Okay. And the other question I had was, Ed at the last RTM meeting mentioned that How many pumping stations are there in town, guys?
16 or 14, something like
14.
that.
We have 14.
Okay. And you said that after a major rainstorm, there are 2 or 3 of those pumping stations that, after everything else has settled down, are still pumping away, which you took as an indication of, well, in that particular neighborhood, maybe more flooding has occurred or groundwater levels are higher, but the sump pumps are pumping away long after the other parts of town have dried out. Uh, why not target those neighborhoods first if that's where your biggest problem exists?
Well, Jim, to be honest with you, we talked all about that, and it always came down to, can we handle the first wave of 5,432 responses that we get back? That's 100%. And I felt our department and the sewer commission could handle that. Now, why would I target just an area if I could capture all the data in Darien in basically one shot? And I want the data. To be honest with you, I have an idea. I have a hypothesis. I did some heavy thinking, if you will. You put it anywhere you want. Those indicators are really good, but I'd like to support that with really good data. And I'd like to exclude areas with really good data. And there's an easy way to get it for me is I send out 5,000 letters and hope I get 5,000 back. And that was the thought process. Now, a lot of things cause pump stations to run a long time. And I think at the RTM, I wasn't as committed to that's what's causing it, but I have a really good feeling that maybe these sump pumps are causing those pump stations to run longer. And I still feel that way. I still feel that it's a good indicator that there are sump pumps connected a lot more in those areas than in others. It doesn't mean there's none in the other areas because the pumps turn off right away after a storm.
I think about this a little bit from the standpoint of being equitable and not targeting a certain percentage of sewer users and treating them differently and exposing them to potential fines differently than all sewer users. I would prefer to simply treat all sewer users the same versus kind of create these targets.
Jim,
Okay.
I'm the one who's volunteered to create the database. And
I was just going to ask, who's doing the paperwork on all this?
Me. And I've got to tell you, as
Oh
someone
my
who
God.
dealt with data her whole life, the only way to do this is to capture all the information at once. Otherwise, you're going to be cross-referencing and, well, did we pick these people up? Did we not? So much more work to try and do it piecemeal. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. And then last question. This is a question from Brian Rayhill. He said, if a resident wishes to connect the discharge of their sump pump into the town storm drain, that's legal, but would the town complete the connection and would the town pay for that? Don't all answer at once.
Well, I mean, I think a single private connection, the town is not looking to share in the costs of that compliance. That's the best location for the discharge. We have generally discussed, well, what if we end up with a dozen connected pumps on a road and that road doesn't have a storm sewer, right? Well, perhaps there is a capital project necessary for the town to extend a storm sewer on that road so that there's a place to put these discharges. But even similar to the way a sewer lateral works, right? We don't build the sewer lateral to your house, right? That's the owner's responsibility. But we build the sewer in the street.
So the person that has the sump pump that wants to be in compliance and get the water from their basement out onto, where do they put it? How far out on their property do they put it? I assume you want to get it away from your foundation, but what if that discharge starts flooding my neighbor's backyard? Or do I have to point it in the direction of where the street sewer water goes?
Yeah, it's an excellent
Stormwater.
round of questions. First, there's going to be, every situation is different with its own set of variables. There could be a house in the case of a sump pump that only fires 3 times in 30 years. You drill a hole in the side of the foundation, you run a 2-inch line through it, you just let it go into the side yard. It's not going to cause a problem for anyone, right? So there's the easy route. But you do have to be careful for sump pumps that do run with consistency, that you don't create a drainage nuisance on a neighbor. And so in those situations, you absolutely have to be thoughtful about where that discharge goes and what the impact of that discharge would be. So, basically point it in a direction that's away from your home and is not going to cause a problem for others. That's an easy, simple sentence, but there will be edge cases where those get more difficult to actually do.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Does the 5,000 plus letters include every single household and business in town, or is there?
You're on mute, Craig.
The entire town is not served by sanitary sewers. Only like 80% or so of the town is covered by sanitary sewers, but it is all the sewer users.
What about businesses?
Yes, those are in the umbrella of sewer user.
I would think that all the new businesses that are going up and the amount of building that's happening in town, you guys are in front of this before it.
Yeah, I tend not to be concerned about stuff that's relatively new, right? Because this wouldn't pass inspection at the building department or by the plumbing inspector, and so anything that's been built in the last few decades, I'm not too worried about. It's a lot of the older stuff that just might be legacy that's been operating and no one's really paying attention to. I think that's where we're going to find most of the connection.
Can I ask one more question? If you have a certificate of occupancy on your home, which means that it was inspected by a building inspector, right? Did that building inspector look to see whether or not the sump pump was discharging into the sewer? In other words, if you have a CO, are you clean and green?
That's a great question.
You can't assume that you are. Again, like I said, I think more recently, they have likely been more diligent about making sure that's the case. What I worry about is the house that was built 100 years ago, and at some point, someone came along and wanted to finish their basement. Their basement was a little musty and got wet every once in a while, and they put an internal drain system in, and then they connected a sump pump to the sanitary sewer to make that happen. And a lot of that stuff goes forward without, permits and inspections and so forth. So again, you can't depend on your CO. That's not your green card, so to speak, which is why we have the compliance statement. You actually have to go and look and take a picture of it. Is it there? Is it not?
Do you need a licensed plumber to do the work involved in venting your sump pump's discharge out of your house? It doesn't sound like a kind of a DIY project. Go up to Home Depot, get some PVC, get a big drill. But do you need a licensed plumber?
Reese, do you have any sense of that? I'm not sure of the answer.
Watch some YouTube.
But so you don't need a licensed plumber?
I think it's your own property, whether you need a permit or not. I can't see where you would. It's already there. You're not doing any electrical work. You're drilling through a foundation and you're putting plastic in your yard. So yeah, I think many people could accomplish that themselves.
Okay, so Councilor Bernie, are you in agreement on that as the town attorney?
I think there's a difference between what you can do legally and what people may do anyway, and this may fall into the
as
latter,
we found out
category.
already talking about this whole thing, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
I had
I think, Jim, that the question would be just whether you need a permit or not. As a homeowner, you can pull a permit for anything in your house except hooking up the electric line to the street, depending on your capability.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a comment and a question, and maybe my comment is, when this does roll out, I feel like you do need some kind of brochure or some kind of larger communication to explain all of these nuances so that people really know what to do next. And otherwise, you're going to be flooded, let's say, with requests or questions, and unless you plan on adding a lot of steps, it'd be hard to do all of that in a timely fashion. So maybe just consider some kind of material for residents. And then I think the other question is there an overall time frame for when this needs to be complete? Kind of like your analysis and addressing all of the connections. I'm just curious.
Yeah, there's
no done in a year or 5 years? Is there some
there's no
overall
statutory or other deadline, so to speak. We like to start ASAP, but ultimately we recognize this is going to be a multi-year process, and we're going to whittle away at it over time. To your other point, we've talked about that exact very thing in terms of educational materials, like literally YouTube videos that might explain what a sump pump is, and we'll post those on the DPW website, and so we're thinking about that too.
And an extensive Q&A document. You can use some of the questions we asked tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe the AI monitor can produce a list of Q&A thoroughly that someone can send to me.
Done.
Now that you've said it, it will happen. It will happen automatically.
I do think once people get started with this with us, if they send it in and they say, I have this problem, I don't know what I'm going to do about it, that's going to stop the fine. Once you get in touch with us and you say, hey, we want to fix this, and we're like, yes, we want to help you fix it, I think we're willing to work with everybody. If you watch any of our meetings, we are very accommodating. I'm probably the least accommodating.
That's not true.
But it's not like you're going to go up to the Boy Scout cabin and say, hey guys, come on, I'm hiring kids, anybody got a drill?
No, I personally do not even want to be involved with looking at the pictures. I mean, I'm going to learn something, but I went out and saw my first illegal sump pump connection. It was simply a PVC pipe coming up and a flexible pipe going into it. There was no, what they call a fern code. There was nothing. It was just one pipe into another pipe. I mean, so these things are going to look different. So I'm not looking at the pictures to evaluate. We have others.
You're not volunteering as a qualified individual.
Just do the data. And give you reports.
Any other questions from the group?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up, Jim. The reason we did that as a qualified individual, could be the homeowner or building owner, is to reduce the cost, that it didn't have to be a plumber. That if you can see it, if you understand it, and it's literally a hacksaw, some PVC, and some glue, and you could do it yourself, you didn't have to bear that burden, that extra cost.
That's good.
So that's why we were flexible on that.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that information and helping us understand, the entirety of the issues. Just so I'm clear, I think the next step is that there will be some revisions to the documents, and then you'll come back to us again. I don't think this is going to RTM in February. Does that sound right? This will be for March, just based on the previous meeting. So I don't think there's anything to vote on tonight, I guess, is where I'm going with that.
I think, I'm sorry, was somebody else about to speak? Okay.
Yes, I'm expecting that you'll be sending new, revised documents.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes. I think the general plan here is, I think everybody would love it if it were to pass this month, but I get the sense from other committees too that that's just not going to happen. So I think the tentative plan here is that we will work with the committee chairs to revise some of these documents to incorporate some of your comments, which I want to do this week. And then we will take the revised set of regulations back to the Sewer Commission, who I believe meet in the first week of March, to get them to review and hopefully approve, and then get it back on the calendar for the full RTM to vote on in March.
So Violet, we're not voting
on
as a committee tonight. We're waiting for the final product.
Correct. Our next meeting is in March also. It'll be before the full RTM meeting. So
Okay.
we'll have an opportunity to look at it again and discuss and vote. I forget the date, but it's about a week before the RTM meeting, the full RTM meeting. Okay.
All right.
All right. With that, I think we can close that discussion. Thank you again so much for all the background information and for joining us tonight. And we look forward to the follow-up materials and working with you. So again, thank you again for everything that you've put into this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks.
Thank
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night.
Okay. Okay, as far as the rest of our meeting, I just had a couple of announcements. You know, we have the date on the calendar for March, which I will follow up with you later. It's already on the calendar. I think it might be March 17th. And if it is, I might change it because that's St. Patrick's Day. And then I believe I need to just update the April date. So just to give you that heads up on dates. And I do think there's just one other request that will come our way. It was mentioned already, this initiative for town government efficiency initiative that John Zagrodzky had mentioned. And I think we'll be asked to consider or think about any, you know, any processes or, you know, that we want to bring up or talk about in terms of how the town government is run. There'll be an approach to get our feedback over to, I believe, TGSNA, and then that will be collated. So we'll just expect to get some guidance on that in the next couple of weeks. And then just the very last thing I'd like you to consider, you know, public health and safety covers a lot of areas. I've been going to the budget meetings just to listen in. The Board of Selectmen had a series of meetings this week where they went, or last week actually, where they kind of went through line by line with all the departments for the budgets. It was really helpful. If you have any questions about the budget, it's all posted online. Feel free to also reach out and I can collate any additional questions. And then once we get to some more meetings, you'll have a chance to submit those. And then if you are interested in kind of observing or being kind of more of a subject matter expert on any of the different areas that we cover, whether it's police or fire, etc., just feel free to reach out to me and I'll send some more information about that. But, you know, there are meetings on the regular that we're invited to attend or can attend. And, you know, as part of our committee and what we cover, and kind of, there's gonna be a lot of requests this year for some expenditures. And if you follow the budgets, a lot of capital improvements that we need to be done, infrastructure around, you know, HVACs and whatnot. So you'll get to see kind of what's going on in the town and the upkeep that's required. I think that's important to be part of, and again, supporting all of these different important services in our town. Those are the kind of last few comments I have to make. Any questions, anything else on anyone's mind?
That I have March 10th as our next meeting, is that right? And
That's right.
Okay.
All
right, thank you.
17th, I have something else. Thank you. Then I'll leave that there. Great. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Jim. In a second.
Second.
Thank you, Zori. Okay. Well, thanks again, everyone. And be on the lookout for more materials to come. Enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you.